So thank you very much. So we hand over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Once again, my name is Stephen Osonuga. I'm currently the lead blue team at SciSec Technology, and I'm also a cloud engineer or a cloud analyst. And I would like to appreciate the Nigerian Microsoft Security User Group for giving me this opportunity to share my knowledge around around managing authentication by using Microsoft Entra ID. So because this is the cloud security series, and you can also reach me on LinkedIn through my LinkedIn handle. Now, moving on. Okay. So today we'll be looking at the Microsoft Entra Connect. Then we'll be looking at the Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync. We also towards the authentication option, which will also like look into the multi-factor authentication and other authentication options that Microsoft give for organization. Then would look into Microsoft Entra Authentication, then the Microsoft Entra Verified ID, and finally, the password protection. Sorry, can you guys hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. So what is the Microsoft Entra Connect? I'm sure some of us might be going through probably the AZ500 or the SC300 or SC200, and authentication and authorization is one thing that seems to cut across most of it. Now, what is the Microsoft Entra Connect? It is an on-premise Microsoft application that is designed to meet and accomplish your hybrid identity goal. So now what this means is that the Microsoft Entra Connect is an application that is deployed on the on-premise environment that is designed to help you to synchronize your on-premise with your cloud environment. So that's why it is called the hybrid identity, which is used for synchronizing your on-premise with your cloud identity. So users can use a single identity to access on-premise application and cloud services. And then we also have another feature whereby it is a single tool to provide an easy deployment experience for synchronization and signing. And it is the Entra Connect replaces another version of identity integration tools such as the directory sync and the synchronization. Now, one thing that I love about the Microsoft Entra Connect is that it is a lightweight tool that when installed on the on-premise environment, it allows you to seamlessly synchronize with your cloud environment, your cloud application and your cloud services as well. Then we have the Microsoft Entra Connect Health, which provides a robust monitoring of your on-premise identity infrastructure, and it enables you to maintain a reliable connection to your Microsoft 365 and the Microsoft Online services. So if we can look at the diagram right here, we can see that the users and the device, and then this is the on-premise Active Directory. And the seamless flow between the on-premise Active Directory with your cloud environment, which is your Entra ID, your Office application, your cloud application, and also your SaaS application as well. So now, what is the Microsoft Entra Cloud Synchronization? Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync is a solution that meets and accomplishes your hybrid identity goals for synchronization of users, group, and contacts to Microsoft Entra ID. And now it accomplishes this by using the Entra Cloud Provisioning Agent instead of the Entra Connect application. So now this brings some benefits to your organization, such as that it supports multi-forest environments, and it also has a simplified installation, and it has multiple agents for high availability. Now, the Entra Cloud ID allows you to sync your users, your group, and your contacts between your on-premise Active Directory and the Microsoft Entra ID. And so it supports multi-forest. That means that the forest or the AD forest that you have in your on-premise can be synchronized with your Microsoft ID, your Microsoft Entra ID forest as well. So this is different from the Entra Connect synchronization, which means that an organization only needs to deploy in their on-premise environment or in their IaaS hosted environment the lightweight agent that acts as a bridge between the Microsoft Entra ID and the Azure Entra ID, or which we call the AD, the Active Directory rather. Now let's take a look at some authentication options that Microsoft provide for your cloud and your on-premise authentication. Now, when we talk about cloud authentication alone, that's where we look at using our Microsoft Entra ID that handles our authentication. So that means that if you have your portal, your Azure portal, and you create a user, a group, and other identities, anytime you try to log in or sign in, Microsoft Entra ID is the solution that help you to manage the authentication. So, but now when you have multiple or double, how do I put it? When you have your on-premise and your cloud together, that is your Microsoft Entra ID. Now we have three different authentication options that Microsoft provides, which the first one is called the password hash synchronization. Now the password hash synchronization has a simplified solution, which means that how it works is it synchronizes the password hash. I don't know if you understand what a password hash means. So a password hash is an encrypted password, right, from your on-premise Active Directory environment. So every users and their password that is encrypted in the on-premise environment is the encrypted password is what is synchronized through the password hash synchronization feature to the cloud environment. So that's what the password hash synchronization means. So now this allows business continuity and it uses a minimal effort, which allows seamless signing and then the consideration for on-premise account states as well. So when you want to synchronize your on-premise environment with the cloud, you install the Entra ID Connect on your on-premise environment, and the Entra ID Connect allows you to enable what we call the password hash synchronization, which synchronizes the hash from your on-premise environment to the cloud. So now that means that if you want to have access to the cloud services, when you try to log into your Entra ID, for example, or any cloud application, what it does is that it has its own copy of your username and your password hash in the cloud environment. So it gives you something similar to a single sign-on experience, but it is not particularly a single sign-on experience. It's like a same sign-on experience. So the same username and password that you have in your Microsoft on-premise environment is synchronized with your cloud. So that means that the same account on your is sent to you in your cloud. So when you the cloud and you want to log into Microsoft services, the same, for example, Steve at cloudschool.nl, and my password on my on-premise environment is what I'm going to use. So it is not a single sign-on, it is just like a same sign-on experience that the synchronization is used to walk through. So that is the password hash synchronization. Then we have the pass-through authentication. The pass-through authentication is okay. So when your company are not particularly safe or secure with the synchronization of password hash, so they want to fail over to a more better option that would ensure security or maintaining policies of the organization. Like now, your company might have enforced policy in the on-premise environment, and the same policy, the same authentication policy to retain also in the cloud as well. So now that's where the pass-through authentication comes in, right? So you deploy a lightweight agent to your on-premise to a on-premise server that manages the user's credentials. So now that means that when you want to sign in on the cloud environment, the cloud has to call that lightweight agent and ask it for if and present it the username and password that was supplied and ask if it is correct or not. And so the lightweight the agent tells it if it is correct or not. So this one does not have to do with synchronization, but rather like an agent deployment. And so the password authentication enhances user experiences and also allow for enforced policy for the synchronization. Now, and then also the you want to log to the class, it makes a call back to the agent that is holding the credentials. And how it works is that when you try to access the environment, the login is sent to the agent, and then you'll and this agent checks the credential, that is the name and password, directly against your company's database. And if it matches, then you are granted access. So the key point is that your actual password is never sent to the cloud. The cloud has to make a call to the agent. Now, finally, we have the more robust authentication method, which is the federated authentication method. Now, the federated authentication, which I'm still going to explain all this in detail, is that it requires external system, and it's also complex. It is built for a more complex identity, and then it has a flexible user experience with some advanced scenarios, and it involves high investment with a single identity provider. Now, how it works is that for the federated identity, your organization has a central identity provider, such as the Active Directory federated services. And so when you try to access a cloud services, you are redirected to your organization login page. And so once you authenticate there, the cloud services trust your organization verification and then grant you access. So this one has a kind of redirection to the federated system, and once you are logged in, then the organization verification grants you access. So now the key point is that you might not even need to enter your cloud service credential as your organization handles the authentication. Okay, now moving on. Please, if you have any question, just ensure to keep note of it. At the end of the session, we're going to be handling the question and answer series. So now, how do you know when to use each of these authentication options? This decision tree gives us a brief overview on when to use each of the authentication option. So first, from the start, we can see that the first question is, do you want Entra ID to handle signing completely in the cloud? So if you want the Entra ID, which is the cloud environment, to handle the signing completely in the cloud, if answer is yes, then it will ask you, do you want to enforce user level Active Directory security policies? So now, we know that when it comes to enforcing policies, if our answer is yes, then we cannot use the password hash synchronization, because the password hash sync only allows synchronization of password hash and does not allow you to enforce policy. So that means we have to use another authentication method. So, but from here, if we do not want the Entra ID solution to handle the sign-in completely, then that means that we have to go for other options, which can be either the pass-through authentication or the federation authentication method. Now, down here, if our answer is no, that okay, we don't want to enforce security policies during our signing, then we'll get asked the last question: if do you have a signing requirement that is not natively supported by Entra ID? So if your on-prem environment has a signing requirement that is not supported, then that means we have to use the federation method, because that is the only authentication method that that has to deal with other requirements. So, but if we do not have any signing requirement that's not supported, then that means that our best option is to use the password hash synchronization. So, but if we want to enforce the security policy, then we'll be asked, do you have a signing requirement that is not natively supported? If the same question is yes, then that means we have to go to the federated authentication. But if it is no, then the final question that will be asked is, do you want signing disaster recovery or leaked credential report? So if you want a report of leaked credential or leaked password or a sign disaster recovery, then the pass-through authentication with password as synchronization is needed. But if we do not want the leaked credential report, then that means that the pass-through authentication is the best bet for that solution as well. So now, and I will add that the pass-through authentication gives us the password async gives us the leaked the feature of having leaked credential report. And what that means is that the Entra ID has a technology that checks the dark web for leaked credentials, and it checks the environment if any user's credential falls under the leaked credential, and if it finds any user with that that their credential has been leaked, it flags that user and asks the user to re-authenticate and change their password on the next login. So that is it for the pass-through. So then if we have signing requirements, then that means we have to come down to the federation question, which is, do you want a signing recovery or leaked report? If the answer is yes, then the feature with the password hash synchronization is the best bet. But if it's no, then federation. So as much as we have the three options, password hash synchronization, the pass-through authentication, and the federation, these other two options, that is the PTA, pass-through authentication, and the federation, have the feature to enable a failover of a password hash synchronization, just in case the agent that is installed goes offline, then you can manually switch to the password hash synchronization system to help you handle your authentication. I hope I'm making sense. So that is the decision tree and how to know when to use each of the authentication methods. So just to summarize this, the password async is a lightweighted authentication method that synchronizes your on-prem identity credentials to the cloud. So the cloud has a copy of your credentials, and then the pass-through means that you need to install an agent in your on-prem that would handle that when you want to log into the cloud, the cloud has to make a call to the agent to ask if the credential is correct. So the cloud does not have access to the credential. So that is when your company feel that they want to be more secured. And then lastly, the federation is a complex solution for that uses what we call a federated services or an identity provider that sends every signing request to the provider and evaluates your login to the provider and gives you access through that provider. So moving on, we have the password hash sync, which I've explained already. That's Microsoft Entra Connect, which is the application that you install in your own. It synchronizes a hash to a cloud-based benefit include it has reduced helpdesk cost. Okay, so now how does it from? That means that the help desk, you won't need much help desk in terms of providing management to your cloud. environment. So that means it still falls back to your on-prem. So that means that if the password, if you can't remember your password for your on-prem, you have to go back to the on-prem and reset your password from there, which now gets synchronized back to the cloud. And also it requires setup with Microsoft Entra Connect and configuration of directory synchronization. And next, we have the pass-through authentication. The pass-through authentication allows your user to sign in to both on-premises and cloud-based application using the same password, right? So it gives you a similar sign-on, a same sign-on experience, but doesn't give you a single sign-on, a SSO experience, but it is like the same sign-on experience with your on-prem environment. And also it reduces your password, it boosts your productivity, and also cuts help desk cost as well. And then it grants user experience, it is easy to deploy and administer, and by design it is secure and it is highly available. Then now, what is Microsoft Entra Authentication? Microsoft Entra Authentication. So to choose an authentication method, you need to consider the time your existing. You need to consider your complexity and the cost of implementing your choice. And these factors are different for every organization and they might change over time. So the Microsoft Entra Authentication it's an authentication that involves more than just the verification of username and password. Now, Microsoft provides a how will I put it, like a different method of authenticating your users, which you can also call your multi-factor authentication, right? And it allows you with a more granular approach to authenticating your user in the cloud environment. Now, so the end authentication improves security and also reduce the need for help desk assistance. Some features include that it provides self-service password reset, and it provides Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication. It has the hybrid integration to write password changes back to your on-premise environment. Then it has the hybrid integration to enforce password protection policy for an on-premise environment and also includes the passwordless authentication. Now, multi-factor authentication is a process where a user is prompted during the signing process for an additional form of identification, such as to enter on their cell phone or to provide a fingerprint scan. Now, I'm sure this is not our first time of more recent time. Most time when you try to log into your application, you're either prompted with the SSO single sign-on experience, you're prompted to verify. So when it comes to our or now it's about bringing your account, and this multi-factor authentication has different from it can be your what you have, which is your fingerprint, your iris, or your then it can also be what you know, which is your password, and then it can also be what you are, right? So such as okay, sorry, so what you are is your fingerprint, your iris scan, then what you have is something like your card, like a access card or a pass key that is used as a form of authentication. So if you don't have that pass key, you can't be authenticated to that environment or to that account. Then what you know is your password, then your PIN as well. So those are multi-factor authentication, and Microsoft supports various form of MFA need. Sorry, can you guys hear me? Just to confirm that I'm still live.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
Yes, you are live and direct.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So if you only use a password to authenticate the user, it leaves an insecure vector for attack. And if the password is weak or has been exposed elsewhere, an attacker could be using it to gain access. So thus, when you require a second form of authentication, security is increased because this additional factor isn't something that is easy for an attacker to obtain or to duplicate. Now, okay, so before we talk about how to implement MFA, I would like to talk about the different forms of authentication that we have in Microsoft, which first is the Microsoft Authenticator. So when you want to provide multi-factor authentication, you have the feature of using the Microsoft Authenticator to as a form of authentication to get also or to put in like a number to authenticate you, right? So we also have the Authenticator Lite, which is in Microsoft. We have the Windows Hello for Business. We have the passkey, or we call it the FIDO2, FIDO2. Then we have the passkey in the Microsoft Authenticator, which is still in preview. Then we have the certificate-based authentication. When configured for multi-factor authentication, we have the external authentication method. We have the temporary access pass, which is the TAP. Then we have the OAuth hardware token and OAuth software token as well. Then finally, we have the SMS and voice authentication. Now, implementing the multi-factor authentication has to do with us enforcing users that, okay, when a user wants to sign into their identity, they should not just use a single form of authentication because that could compromise the company, but they need to use a different form of authentication, which is also multi-factor authentication. Now, Microsoft Entra multi-factor authentication and conditional access policy gives you the flexibility to require MFA from users for specific signing events. Now, when we want to implement MFA in Microsoft Entra, Microsoft recommends us that we use what we call the conditional access policy. Now, the conditional access policy is a feature in Microsoft that it is quite robust, right? It's not just used for MFA, it's also used for different security measures or policies to secure your organization. Sorry, please. That mic is disturbing. Please can you kindly mute your mic? All right, thank you so much. Now, Microsoft. Okay, so like I was saying, conditional access policy gives us a more robust security to like a policy that we give to our organization that, okay, this is the policy. Nobody from this department should have access to this, or people from the IT group should only have access to the IT application. So all those policies that we can give in our on-prem, the conditional access policy gives us that granular feature of assigning policies based on users and location, based on application. It can be based on devices or based on real-time risk. And so, and we can choose what either we want to allow this particular set of people, particular set of device, particular set of application, or we can choose to block them from accessing application and data. So now, with that picture in mind, trying to implement the multi-factor authentication means that we're going to select the users and identity that we want to enforce it with, and then we're going to choose to allow access, but they need to. Okay, so sorry. When we want to enforce it, the multi-factor authentication, we select that, okay, maybe all users needs to enforce, like need to use MFA. So after we select all users, then we want to say that okay, we want to grant them access, but we require them to use a form of a form of MFA to have access to the portal. Then so it can be the portal, it can be a particular application, it can be anything. So but this is just like a pictorial demonstration of how to enforce the MFA using the conditional access. Although we're going to still implement it in, we're going to still implement the MFA in the lab. But although we've done it before, but for the sake of those that are joining us for the first time, we're going to implement multi-factor authentication to secure users and identities in the cloud. Now, Microsoft also have a feature called the passwordless authentication. Now, passwordless authentication, it can be quite stressful when when we're asked to put in multiple or types of authentication. After we've put our long password, they'll not tell us to now go and receive a code and put all that and so it can be quite stressful. And although Microsoft has a secure by design principle, but then there's also a passwordless authentication option, which Microsoft offers various passwordless method, which first is the Windows Hello for business. I'm sure you might be aware of the Windows Hello for business. That is, your Windows app serves as a authentication method. That means that if you normally sign into your Windows laptop with your iris scan, with your face scan, or with your fingerprint, the same authentication is synchronized with your passwordless authentication on your Entra ID. So that gives you a more passwordless means of signing into your account. Then we also have the Authenticator app where Microsoft send either a code or no, they ask you to put in a code from your app to the screen. And so once you do that, you don't need any other password, and it grants you access. Then we have the FIDO2, which is like a security key, like a hardware that is just more of a flash drive or so that you plug into your system, and then you either it is like a fingerprint. You just put in your fingerprint, and then it grants you access to the environment. Then we also have the email code, then the SMS as well. So passwordless method enhances security and also mitigates attack risk. Then the deployment includes planning, pilot, user registration, and managing through the Entra Admin Center. Right. So if you want to enforce it or you want to implement it, you'll be asked this question: that do you already know which passwordless authenticator method you want to use? If yes, then you are asked which authentication method do you want to receive guidance for. So you can choose either the Hello for Business, the passwordless with Microsoft Authenticator app, or the security key. So these are the three basic passwordless authenticator methods used to use for authentication. Now we have also what we call the protect against weak use a a weak credential that is so then also the password 123 variation should not be used, or maybe contour so contours of variation, that maybe your company's name now, for example, should not be used as your password. So just to protect users. So it detects and block non-weak password variants and can also block additional weak terms that are specific to your organization. So yeah, that is just the overview of that. Now, Microsoft also supports the single sign-on. The single sign-on, or popularly known as SSO, it allows one set of credentials for multiple systems, and it allows simplifying user access across application. And the option for single sign-on includes federation protocol, like that of the federation services, and then it is password-based and link-based as well. So the single sign-on allows you to use a particular credential across multiple systems. That's how it works. I'm sure you would have seen single sign-on for other services such as the Google SSO, Apple SSO, then the Microsoft SSO. So it allows you to use the same credential to sign in to other applications using the same credentials. Now, planning SSO deployment is crucial, considering application hosting and also access requirements for seamless integration as well. So implementing the SSO in your Microsoft Entra ID, it requires for you to opt for roles with least permission necessary, and also to be reviewed periodically, to regularly renew and manage your SAML application certificates with a structured process. And also keep user informed about any SSO changes discomfort users. So please, can you mute your mic? Okay. Okay. So single sign-on, as I said, is using the same credentials to sign to multiple system or multiple application, using the same credentials, right? And finally, okay, no, not finally, I think we still have, okay, yeah. So we have the Entra Verified ID, the Microsoft Entra Verified ID. So the Microsoft Entra Verified ID is a part of the Entra suite of identity and access management solution, and it is focused on establishing and managing decentralized identity. So we also call it DID as well, decentralized identity. So DID technology provides a secure and private way to manage your identity data without relying on centralized authority or intermediaries. So how the DID works is that your company provide their staff with something like a verifiable identity, which will be linked to the staff's Microsoft Authenticator app. So now when those staff now want to verify their identity on another provider, they provide the provider with the company given verified ID, if that makes sense, right? So, but we're still going to practicalize all this and how the Entra Verified ID works. So basically, your company gives you a decentralized identity that will be linked to your Authenticator app. So anytime you are asked to verify your identity, you just scan the QR code of the provider that is asking to verify, and it is able to call your credentials from that authenticator. So so to implement or to configure the Microsoft Entra Verify ID, first you gather tenant details to set up your sample application, then download the sample code, then configure the verifiable credential application, and then you update the sample application and run and test the sample application just to confirm that the Entra Verified ID works fine. Now, recommend and enforce modern authentication protocol. Now, this just shows us the best form of authentication to use when using any our Entra account. Now, a bad password can be seen as this list, and I'm sure that most of us that are lazy will just prefer to use a simple password, which maybe can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or QWERTY, just to save stress. But then the easier the password is, the easier you can be compromised, right? And a kind of easy password is you using your name as your password, or probably your birth year as your password. So it is not recommended to use simple password, but instead use a form of complex password. Now, a good form of authentication is having a multi-factor authentication, which means that also having like a second form of authentication, like the SMS or the voice call that calls you and gives you your code, that okay, put in this code to gain access to your account. Now, a better form of authentication is having your authenticator app that sends push notification that okay, you are trying to sign into your application. Do you want to allow the sign in, or do you want to reject it now? So now this authenticator app provides a more safer way, because this can't be cloned. And once you are pushed with a notification that you are trying to sign in, if you are not the one that is authorizing that sign in, then you can easily reject it. Then also we have the software token OTP as well, and the hardware token OTP. Then for the passwordless authentication, we have still the same Microsoft Authenticator, which includes your phone sign-in. Then we have the Windows Hello, we have the FIDO2 key, and then certificate-based authentication. So now this is the best form of authentication in your application. That means applying all these gives you a more secure way. Now just imagine someone is trying to gain access to your account, and then they are asked to put in a FIDO2 key to have access to that account. They might as well just give up, because they can never in a million years have access to that FIDO2 key. Or if they try to log in and then they say check your device and use your Windows Hello, and if that they're obviously not using your personal device, because it is hardware encoded or something like that. So they cannot have access to your account, or they cannot replicate, or they cannot clone all these form of authentication, and that makes your account even the more safe. So in conclusion, we've looked at the various form of authentication in the Microsoft Entra ID and also in your on-prem. We've looked at the different authentication methods that is used for securing your hybrid solutions. Then we've looked at multi-factor authentication and its different form. And also we looked at SSO, and finally we looked at the the Microsoft Verified ID. So I will be stopping here. Does anyone have a question? Mr. Emmanuel.
Hello, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
That's a wonderful section. Thank you. So does anyone have any question? So if you have any question, you could drop on the chat. So our speaker can answer your question. Our cyber preacher. So you can just drop your question on the chat. So that's a wonderful section. Thank you very much, Mr. Steven. Thank you. So
Thank you
any
so much.
question,
Thank you so much.
please just drop on the chat. Just drop on the chat. So, Mr. Steven, is there any demonstration that you would like to show us?
Yes, I would just like to show us how to enforce the MFA, then also the different authentication method, and finally, if possible, I would like to show us how to also use the decentralized identities, which is a verified ID as well.
Wow, that would be a very nice one. I can't wait to see how those things work. So we are waiting for questions. Okay. While we expect the questions, you could just go straight to the demonstration. So once there's any question, I'll raise my hand. I won't cut you. Then once you notice that my hand is raised, then you can just tell me, then I'll read the question out.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. All right. Let me switch to the lab session. Okay, I will share my screen now. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Please, if you can see my screen, just let me know.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
We can see your screen and we can hear you very clearly. Thank you.
Identity suits. If we want to manage our, just zoom in to the here we can see the different way of protecting our identity, which then to that allows user to. So let me refresh my page. As well, it is also possible for us to use the portal to also manage our identity, but then we can also choose to use the Entra Admin Center as well. So if we come down to protection and we click on identity protection, here we can see that we can protect functional access, then the its policy and its policy. So we can come to conditional access. Here we can choose to create our multi-factor authentication, our MFA policy that, okay, we want every user in the organization to enforce multi-factor authentication in those MFA using that, right? And now to so over policy to help secure our organization, but our major focus for today is going to be the multi-factor authentication policy. right? Although, if we can look down here, it tells us that we're about to manage our organization configuration. I mean, that is great, but you must first disable security defaults. So now this security default means that by default, Microsoft has some security policy enabled, such as fee and some other. But if we feel that we have security, then just to show you how to enable MFA in your organization. So we can see enforce MFA for all users. Also, I can see that we can choose a particular set of users, but for this scenario, we'll say all users. Now you now come down to users and then click all users. So that means that it says it can enable enforce this policy for all users selected. When I can start, there's a warning that says don't lock yourself out. This policy will affect all of your users. We recommend applying a policy to a small set of users first to verify it is behave as expected. All right. So, but if you feel that okay, you don't want to lock yourself out, you can come down to exclude and choose to exclude some particular set of identities or users, right? So you can come to exclude users and then search for your users, search for your user to exclude yourself out of the policy just in case. Or maybe you want to exclude your emergency account because I think Microsoft recommend you having an emergency global account just in case of any authentication issue or something like that. So you can choose the account and then select that, and so it comes under the exclude tab. Now this target resource now is when we want to configure some other form of policy, maybe a particular set of resource is what I want to. Okay, so let's say I want to select a particular set of resource. We'll come to select down here and then choose the target resource where we want the policy to apply on. All right, so it lists our cloud application and then some other application, but for the sake for MFA, we don't need to include target resource. It's not necessary because our goal here is to enable or grant need their MFA enabled, right? So we don't back. The network is if we want a network, right? Okay, people that are in this network range should have access to this particular resources, right? So, but like I said, we're not looking at all this now. We're going to come to grant because we want to grant access to all users, right? So we want to grant access, but we want to require multi-factor authentication, right? So allow user to sign in to the application, but please just require the MFA. So that means that if this is not enabled before, any user that wants to sign in next after this policy is enforced, they'll be prompted to enable their multi-factor authentication to their application. Now, as you can see, we have also different options. It says require authentication strength. That means we want a particular strength. Like, okay, so it says that we cannot use it because MFA is in place. But let's say we want to require authentication strength now. We can select the strength of authentication if we only want MFA, which is a combination of methods such as password plus SMS. Then if we want a stronger authentication strength, just like how I showed you in the demonstration, that is the passwordless MFA, which uses Microsoft Authentication and Windows Hello. All right, and then we have the phishing resistant MFA, which we have items like our FIDO2 security key. So this also gives you a more granular approach to your security, right? So, but we can just stick to require multi-factor authentication. Now, we can grant all user access if we require device to be marked as compliant. So that means that if the devices is marked as compliant, then these users or should have access to the account. But if not, they won't be granted access. Right. So then we also have the require. I think someone is asking a question. All right. I'm coming. Then we have other option, which is require password change, require app protection, require app approved clients. So we'll just select the require multi-factor authentication and then click on select. So that means we want to grant access to all users that uses multi-factor authentication. Okay. Then this report only means that we want to audit this particular policy. So there are some kind of policies that you create that you are not sure of the outcome. So you want to enforce it immediately, right? So you first want to audit and see the audit log on how the policy will apply, and then you can now later come and enforce it, right? So we don't want to report only, but we want to enforce it so that everyone starts using the MFA, and then we can now click on create. But then we can't create because of the security default that is enabled. So so someone, Mr. Adeyemi, says that I thought the conditional access policy is used to trigger features that are already set up. So my question mainly is this: how will I set up MFA traditional? That is, I cannot set up MFA without conditional access. Is this correct? Yes, that is correct. If okay, so let me discuss this. We can search for multi-factor authentication MFA, right? Which takes us to the traditional page for multi-factor authentication, and then we're told that to use MFA to protect your user. See, there are many ways of deploying MFA, but the best way of using MFA is to use your conditional access policy. So now that means that the traditional mean MFA is kind of obsolete now, and we're required to use the conditional access. So, but yes, you're required to now use the conditional access to configure your MFA. But like I said, the security it enforces MFA by default for all users, so that all users are required to use MFA, and it secures the organization. Now notice that if you first create your account, right, it gives you a 14 days grace period before you can enable MFA. But after the 14 days grace period, you are required, like an enforcement, that okay, you can't have access to your account without you setting up your multi-factor authentication. Now, I was even about coming here. Now we can see some other security features in our multi-factor pane, which first we have the accounts lockout. So if we want to configure a high security environment, we can see that okay, we need to configure a account that after a certain number of MFA of incorrect to so after false or until accounts locals count. So now this is where we can now lockouts that okay, the account should lock out for maybe 1800 minutes. So that means that we can't go beyond on. I think this is 60 minutes is 20 days or so. So it says that we can't go more than 40 minutes. So I'll just say, okay, let it be 180 minutes, so 2 hours. So the once this number of field authentication is reached, block the user for 2 hours. So minutes until account is automatically unblocked. Right. Okay, sorry. I think this is for this rather. Then the account lockout counter is the minute whereby it is count between the field the field number. So if within maybe 5 minutes now it's filled 3 times, so we need to log out for 180 minutes and it get unblocked automatically after this minute. So then we can also let me discard this. Now we can also block and unblock users. So a block user will not receive MFA request. Authentication attempts for that user will be automatically denied, and a user will remain blocked for 90 days from the time that they are blocked. And to manually unblock a user, I can click on unblock. Okay. Now we can choose to block a user from having access to their account. Probably we feel this user has been compromised, so we want to block them. So once they appear in this block list, if that user tries to sign in, the user is not going to be prompted with MFA, and hence they can't have access to their account. Please confirm if it is from everybody's end, if the network is breaking from everybody's end. Right. So then we also have the fraud alert as well. So this fraud alert allows your users to report fraud if they receive a two-step verification request that they did not initiate. So if we enable this fraud alert and then users receive a two-step verification, they can report for fraud alert, and then that then allows us to choose if we want to automatically block off users who report fraud alerts. So once the user reports fraud alert, then that account get blocked, and so then we can also put in some code to report fraud during initial greeting. So another question: how many MFA can I set up for just one user? In the case I use the authenticator, how precisely can I set it for 2 different phones? Okay, that is a very good question. That's a very good question. I'll answer that. Let me show you. Okay, I'll show you the MFA list. I think that should come under authentication method. Now we have different authentication method, like I said. So we can choose to use 2, I think 2 or more, or sorry, authentication strength. But you can't set up a 2 phone number. That one is not allowed. But you can choose to use email and then Microsoft Authenticator and SMS together, like that combination. So you can set up 2 or 3 different authentication methods that if that allows user to choose the authentication method that they want to use. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Adeyemi. Okay, Mr. Is it Mr. Nolu or Miss Nolu? It is out of ask the time in minutes before password will reset. The 180, is it in seconds, as in 3 minutes, or in 180 minutes? Yes, it is in minutes. account lockout. So minute until account is automatically unblocked. So it counts in minutes. So that 180 means 180 minutes. So then 60 minutes is 1 hour. So 120 minutes is 2 hours. 180 minutes is 3 hours. So that's 3 hours before the user is unblocked and can sign in using the multi-factor authentication once again. I believe that answers your question. So coming back to our Microsoft Entra ID, we have, I think I've showed you guys the conditional access, but now this is a more granulated view of the conditional access. So we can choose to grant people grant people access based on named location. So if you want to grant people access or users access on named location, that means we also come here and create our named location or our country range, and also that when we're creating our conditional access, we can grant access based on location. But I think we're still going to come to this conditional access later on. Now, but still, our scope is going to be this authentication method, which is the policies that we can add our external method and the authentication method policy that we can use in our organization. So we can use the passkey, the authenticator, the SMS, the TAP, which is the temporary access pass. We can use the hardware OAuth token. We can use the third-party software OAuth token. Then we can use voice call, email, OTP, and then certificate-based authentication. Now, we discussed about password protection. Now, this is when we want to configure that, okay, we don't want users to use a simple password, right? So now password protection allows us to set up our smart lockout. So now this lockout threshold means that how many field sign-in are allowed on an account before it first lockout. So that means that if we want that users can have only 5 failed signing. So if then there's going to be a lockout on the account, but 10 is so if someone wants to run a brute force attack on your account, 10 is too small for them to even get your password, right? So a lockout threshold is placed that after 10 failed signing, we want to lock out the identity that is trying to sign in. Now the lockout duration in seconds. So now the minimum length in seconds for each lockout. So if an account is locked repeatedly, this duration increases. So after it gets its first lockout, it has to wait for 60 seconds. That's for 1 minute. For again, and so as the so then we have our custom ban password. So that is if you want to ban a particular set of for every user from using. And so if I say that okay, I want to ban password from being used as password, Microsoft has this intelligence that okay, every form of combination that could form this password will be blocked. So that means that if the person's type in p at 55word, it still detect this as password, right? And then it tells you that you cannot use this as a password because it has been blocked or it is part of the banned password list. So if you are configuring it for your company, it could put your company's name that okay, users are not allowed to use the company's name, and you can use maybe Fabricam, that is your B2B company as well, and then some other list that you feel user might want to use because that could compromise the user. So it checks for every combination that could be used and then it bans it from all users, right? So then we have the password protection for the Windows Server Active Directory. So this for the on-prem. that is, we can enable password protection on Windows Server Active Directory. So if set to yes, password protection is turned on for the AD domain controller when the appropriate agent is installed. Then in the mode, like I said, if you choose audit, that means it audits and the policy suits well. And then the so Mr. Adeyemi, what I'm asking is for users that want to see how smart the organization Authenticator app for my user account on 2 different mobile phone, whereby I can access my account with either of the authentication app. Sorry, I'll read it again. For users that want to outsmart the company, can I set up Authenticator app for my user account on 2 different mobile phone? Oh, okay. Whereby I can access my account with either of the. Okay, no, it's so that means that you can only use one from, like, now, if you want to like sign into your application now and asking for password, you can use one password. So it's similar to that. You can only scan and use one Microsoft Authenticator app. So that means that once you have scanned the QR code that they show you for your Microsoft Authenticator app to integrate the Authenticator app, the scanning feature won't be shown anymore. So what you see is just to manage the MFA. So you can't use two authenticator app for two different phones. Because it is even against policy, right? Because if that means that if you can use two, then someone can use like 10. So if someone compromise the company now, they can easily register their authenticator app for any users and they just bust that. And so they have like a more persistent let's say attack on that organization, right? So a user has the ability to link one authenticator app. So it's one app per user, then one email for the authentication. So if you want to use email as your two-factor authenticator, so you link one email. So that's how it works. One. Is um is 10 signing attempt not so much? What is the breakthrough? As long as you have like your or the company has a policy, like a password policy, right? That is, and by default, Microsoft tells you that you have to use a secure password. That means it must contain capital letter, small letter, number, and special characters. Right. So as long as they're using that from that secure password, I don't think 10 trials can easily break the password, except if you use maybe your first name, which is not recommended, then is in the number, but it's not going to be that easy to actually still break it because it combines capital letter, small letter, number, and then what they call it, special characters. Okay, no, thank you so much. I really appreciate that question. It's had me thinking for a brief moment. So thank you for the question. And yeah, so what if they break through? They can easily break through, and the more failed attempt that they have, the more this duration increases. So from 60, it goes to 120 seconds. That's 2 minutes. And if they're able to guess, so sorry, to put in their password, well, it goes to 180 after the next attempt. Then after the next attempt, I think it might even go to 1 day. Right, so come back after 1 day or something like that. Right, so that is the lockout duration. So then we have the registration campaign. I think this is where we can configure the so to start a registration campaign that prompts users to set up more secure authentication method, and we can exclude users and group for the entire campaign, right? In the settings section, or include users and group for each authentication method. So now this is where we can choose that, okay, users should use maybe just 2 form of authentication, or maybe different number of authentication. So if we edit these, the state of the campaign is Microsoft Manage, and this option allows Microsoft to manage whether this feature is enabled or disabled, right? So these allow to snooze. So you can choose the campaign, right? Maybe one day is when you want to the campaign should run for. Then limited amount of snooze is enabled. So enable the different users and group. That's when you can choose the user that you want to add to the campaign, and then authentication method has to be the Microsoft Authenticator. Right, so but we don't need this for now. Then now we have the authentication strength. So authentication strength determines the combination of authentication method, okay, this is it, that can be used. Now we have the multifactor authentication, which has a built-in for Windows Hello for Business, and 16 more of the passwordless, which has the Windows Hello for Business, and 3 other more, that is the FIDO2, then the then the others, they will have the phishing resistant MFA. So authentication strength determines the combination of authentication method. Now, if you want to use a phishing resistant MFA, that means that we want users to use either the Hello for Business, or the passkey, or the certificate-based authentication. Now, for general MFA, users can use any of all these lists. So you can just use the 3, or you can go as far as using the tap, that's the temporary access pass for one-time use. Then we have the password plus the software words. We have the password plus SMS, right? The password or the voice, and then so that means that this if the user choose password plus voice, so this is going to be their own form of authentication. So after they put in the password, they will need to require a voice call to give them a one-time password as well. Sorry. Then so we have a lot of other form of authentication strength, right? And so the most secure is this Windows Hello for Business, or passkey, which is physical, and then certificate-based authentication. Ugoma is raising a hand up. Please, can I hear from you?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Thank you so much, sir. So I asked a question, but you jumped it. That's why I had to raise up my hand.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Apologies.
It was that of the password protection, where you were stating where you put the rules, writing down the probably password. You don't want any word used for that. I was asking, what about them? You writing that they should not be able to use their names. How do you put it there?
That would be quite complex, actually. So, okay, so now for you can't really go as far as saying do not use your name, but as long as the usage of capitalization, small letter, number, and special character is used, that provide a more secure. I know some of us use maybe our name, but as long as there's a capital letter in between, and then there's some random numbers and special characters, it is even harder to break it, because they cannot, like, it is not possible for you to know the special character that I'm using. Like now, if I'm using the percentage sign symbol, let's say I use Steven with a capital V, right? And then I put percentage at 200. It is not possible for you to guess that difficult. So even though you know my name, Steven, will you know where I'll put my capital letter? It can be N, And so even if you are now trying to like trying different variation, once the 10 lockout threshold reaches, it blocks access, right? And even though still when you try to so yes, so it blocks access after 10, and then you now try to do it again, and so it's prolongs the lockout threshold until, so it is not really like that possible. And I know there was a time I was using, no, let me not say it. This is being recorded, so I don't want someone that is very good to never start tracing me back. But yeah, I've some people use their name, but they mix it combined with special characters and then numbers. So you can even replace your name. Like now, if you're using, if there's, for example, there is O in your name, you can replace it with 0 and then still add some special character. So it is not really possible for you to guess that that kind of password. Does that answer your question? So you can't like put everybody's name in the list. So that, I think, yeah, I answer your question. Okay, so is 10 the minimum? Alright, so that means that it can go as 2 sign-in attempts. So after 2 fails, and then it's increased to maybe 2 minutes, then and on and on and on like that. I believe that answers your question. So I think that is it. Then lastly, we have the settings. Okay, so we still have this, right? Then so we can choose to report suspicious activity for all users, and then we have the system preferred multifactor. So you can also like go through these to know more about this. I would like us to touch the verified identity and how it actually works, right? So that is it for this. Now let's go back home. Let me expand this, and now we have our verified ID over here. Now, like I said, the verified ID allows staffs or users to verify their identities on maybe a connected organization. Okay, let me just give like a quick scenario of how it actually works. So the DID technology provides a secure and private way to manage identity data without relying on centralized authority. So how it works is that a user will request for a verifiable credential from their issuer, which could be from your company, and then the issuer of the credential attests that the proof of user provided is accurate, and then create a verifiable credential signed with their DID, that is the decentralized identity for which the user is subject. And then the user now take that DID that was given by the company so he then shows that as a proof to the connected organization, and then the identity is checked, and so they are able to, for example, maybe access a kind of discount from the connected store, or maybe access a kind of promo. So that form of that they want to verify this identity, if this user is actually from this company, comes from the decentralized or the verified ID. Please, who has access to log this one is currently waiting. I am checking. There is no lobby. Right. There is no lobby. Yeah. It is an open meeting. So I think anyone can have access to the meeting. Okay, so moving on. Yeah, so there's no lobby at all. It's everyone have access. I don't think you guys had to wait till you were allowed into the meeting. So now we have the Verify ID. So if you come to the overview page, you see that the Verify ID enables fast remote onboarding, more secure access, and easy account recovery with a standard-based solution for individuals and organization. So to set it up, you have to just click on Get Started. So once you click on Get Started, you can allow for multiple domain, right? So it says, sorry, for a single domain rather. So if you have multiple domain on your tenant, not to continue, only one domain can be used. So you click and then select the domain that you want to use, that you want to enforce the verified ID on. So anyone that is under that domain can be given a verified identity for a more secure onboarding to other. So just click on Get Started, and this will take about 1 minute to actually process. So you just sit back, get your coffee, and then wait until this is done. Okay. So now, so to easily onboard, they've given us like a kind of step to follow. So it says your verified employee credential is now ready. Let's try it out. So first, you need to get your new credential. Users can obtain their verified employee credential by default through the My Account site. So that is your Microsoft My Account site that allows you to check your account. Then you can now use your new credential, so you can test your new verified employee credential on the demo page to see how users share it when requested by a verifier, and then you can also control who can get the credentials. So me as the admin now, I can choose to manage this verified identity and then also the credential as well. So if I should come to this credential page now, it allows me to create credentials. So by default, we have this verified employee credential already in place. And so with this, I can choose to design how the will look like. And then I can see that there's a claim and then the manifest URL. Then I can choose to issue a credential and then revoke credential from a particular user. So you can see issue a credential. Here by default, all Microsoft Entra ID users within the tenant, they are allowed to retrieve credential from this particular verify ID. But if I want to select a particular set of people that would have access to the verify ID, then I'll click on this and then select. So it's particular set of group rather. Now select the group that should have access to the verify ID. So but I'm going to leave this as this. So now, in order for me to have access to verify ID, I need to go to my account on Microsoft.com. So since I'm also under the domain of cloudschool.nl, I will just click here to open the link and see how to actually get my verified ID. So like I said, this verified ID will be linked to your Microsoft Authenticator app. And so that is what the employee carries around, and then when they're asked to verify their identity with their company, they just provide them with that particular what is the name again, with the if you have question, feel free to drop as this is loading. Now this is the myaccount.microsoft.com will look like. This is where you can actually manage your account. Right. So if you go to you are going to see all these except for this get my verified ID. So now because the company domain has enabled the verified ID, this is why I can now see that I can get my verified ID and link it to my user Okay, so I'm going to click on get my verified ID. This is an authorization required. Your organization has authorized you to get the contact your administrator. I think it has to take some few time to actually synchronize with it because we just enabled it for all users. But we're going to wait for that to synchronize because it says that it allows users who are entitled to verify employee credentials to retrieve it through their profile on their My Account website. So that's how it is. Now, we can also issue credentials through your website as well through this post API call. So once you embed, this post API call to your website, you can also issue credential as well through this. Then we can also revoke a credential from a particular user in the organization. So I can choose to search for a user and then choose to revoke their credential. Then once a user has been issued a credential, it is theirs to keep. However, apps and website may contact you, the issuer, to verify if the credential is still accurate or valid. So back to verified employee. I can choose to edit the style here and then choose the background color. Maybe I want white. I think I already know white and black. Okay, so text color can't be the same as background color. The text color is white. FFFF is white. I don't know other color, but this 000 is black. So we can just modify all this, and then the logo. If we have our company logo in a blob, we can choose to put the logo link over here of our company and then update, then save. Right, so that updates how the credential will look like for each of the employees. Okay, and then now we have the organization settings. So this is just the identifier for your verified ID and then your DID and identifier for the organization, right? Let me see, is there anything else I did not cover? Let me refresh this page. Then it still needs a little to synchronize. So we have the activity log as well. I think mine is okay. Okay, so we have the activity was gotten their ID issued already, and then you can see that here and which application they have used it on. Okay, so that is all that, and then we have the add-on to face check each of the employee, but this come at a cost of $0.25 per transaction thereafter if you want to enable it. So lastly, I think we have, so we have our credentials. Sorry, I'm coming. Okay. So, but generally, we have our credentials enabled already for this domain. That is for the cloudschool.nl, which is here, and then we can choose to. Let me check this one more time. Okay, so get my verified identity. This is meant to load a QR code that I have to scan. So you guys can't see my phone, but I'm on the Microsoft app trying to scan my verified identity, which I've done that already. And so it's on board my credential to this Microsoft application. Now I have it on my phone. I can click on done. Right. So now to test this verified ID. So this has been registered to my phone already, to my Authenticator app. So now if I want to like, let's say hypothetically there's a store that my company is connected to, and they want to receive like a discount from them, for example, Microsoft Test Store to test the verified ID, which is prosware.azure.net. Now, for example, this store has, they sell computers and all, but I want to see if my my user has discount. So I'll click on access discounts, and then instead of signing in, I can choose to use that out to verify my employee credentials. So once I click on this, I'm asked to scan to provide my credential. So I will scan this on my phone, and then it checks my digital wallet for my verified identity, and allow me to also sign into this application using this verified ID and see if I have a kind of discount. So just wait a little bit for this to load. Okay, and yeah, so my discount is applied, and this is it. So my user from my organization, I'm logged in as my user using this verified ID, and now I can see that, oh, this is the discount provided by the organization. So thank you so much. That will be all for the lab. I hope you guys have been able to get some valuable experiences from this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Steve.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. I've gained a lot. So with a reaction, can we just appreciate Mr. Steven for this wonderful section, for the job well done? Wow.
Thank you all.
I've learned a lot. At least I've seen the way verified ID works, like in a real life scenario. So you have attended to most of the questions on the chat.
All right.
Yeah, you have attended to most of the questions on the chat. So if you have any question, you could just unmute your mic and ask, or you drop the question on the chat. So that's a wonderful section. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm not seeing any question on the chat. Okay. So thank you all for joining us today. And we appreciate everybody for taking out their time in this weekend to join us. So a question just came in. Someone is asking, okay, yeah, the recording section will be made available. Once we end the meeting now, we are going to actually we are going to upload the video to our YouTube channel, and we'll drop the link on our social media platforms. So if you're not on our group chat, you could just, I'll drop the group chat invite now, so you could just join. Let me just look for it straight away. Or Mr. Steve, if you have it, you could just drop it while let me look for the group chat. Okay.
Sorry, what is that? The chat
Azure Security User Group. The group
okay,
chat.
Okay.
Okay. And okay, let me just look for it, because someone asked a question here. Say, what Azure license allow admin to get the verified ID feature? So please, could you just help us answer that?
Yes, so the Entra ID P2 license gives you access to the verified ID and some other Entra ID features. So the Entra P2 license gives you all the access that you need for that. Okay. So verified ID does not actually work on the developer account, because you need a P2 Entra ID license to activate the verified ID.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that answers the question, because with Azure AD Premium P2 license, you have that feature. Yeah, thank you very much. So I've dropped the link to the WhatsApp group chat, so you could just join it. Oh, someone asked again. He said, is the verified ID only available on Entra ID portal and not Azure portal? So someone asked that.
I mean, Let's check that together.
Okay.
Just so I'm sure. Yeah. Let's check that together. I believe, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, you could see your screen.
So let's check the portal, theazure.com. Okay, please, I'll drop my LinkedIn. I think Mr. Solomon was raising his hand up at the time.
Okay, maybe
So
we can allow Solomon to talk. Solomon, you could ask your question.
You skipped one of my questions, please. Sorry.
Okay. Is this is it the question you dropped, like, is verified ID only available on Entra ID port? Is it this one that does verified ID feature also works for on-prem users?
Yes.
That are just synced to the cloud?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's search for verified ID.
So, Mr. Steve, I don't know if you get that question. So the guy is asking, maybe for instance, you sync a user
let
from.
him finish with this one. Yeah, let him finish with this one. Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks, boss.
Okay.
Oh, you're welcome. So yeah, as you can see, the verified ID is also available in the portal as well. Particularly, I think I just searched for the verified ID. I was trying to check if I could see it from the Entra, although it should also be in the Entra. Sorry, where is it? Entra ID section, right? And but just to save time, so I don't start looking for it. You can just search for the verified ID. Now, for your question that says, does the verified ID feature also work for on-prem users that are synced to the cloud? I would say yes, because once you are synced to the cloud, you have your credential to the cloud environment, and then you also have access to the cloud application services for being synchronized to the cloud environment. So yes, the verified Entra ID, so the verified ID is also available for on-prem users as well that are synced to the cloud.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's one of the advantages of hybrid identities. At least you could have access to Microsoft Entra ID features. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So I've dropped the link to the WhatsApp group. So let's kindly join. Thank you very much, Mr. Steve, for this section. You are really a cyber preacher. Thank you. Thank you very much. And to our audience, in the house. So Steve has dropped his LinkedIn handle. So kindly follow him on LinkedIn. And also, Steve, do you have a YouTube channel? So you could also drop the channel so at least they could subscribe to your channel so they can learn more.
I think they will find on the LinkedIn. I can.
Okay, so on the LinkedIn profile, please check for his YouTube channel so you could watch and learn more, because Steve is actually a cyber preacher that talks about cybersecurity and is an expert in cybersecurity. So let's follow him so we can learn a lot. So thank you very much, our audience. Thank you for joining us today from wherever you are around the world. We appreciate you and kindly have a great weekend. And once again, Happy New Year. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. It's nice to have you here, Mr. Solomon.
Bye.